Hello, welcome back to Catholic Reboot. What an exciting feast day today is. It's May 3rd, and it is the feast day of finding of Christ's Holy Cross. Before we get into that, many will say that once in your life you have to get back to Jerusalem, maybe even to Nazareth, to see where Christ was, to see the roads he walked on. And that's very true. My parents and my brother Jerry were fortunate to be able to do that. The other is to be in Rome and to also see some of the artifacts that were recovered uh, in the Holy Land and brought back to Rome. I was fortunate enough to actually see the Holy Staircase that Christ walked up uh, b- while he was going to be sentenced by Pilate. Now, the staircase, or what they call the Scala Santa, right, or Holy Stairs, is said to be almost, I think that the total number of steps, and I got to get that, but they just restored it to its original state after almost 300 years. So they were marble staircases. When I went, they actually had wood over the top of them. So now the marble steps were exposed for the first time since the early 18th century. And they actually did quite a bit of restoration work on it. And the way when you visit the staircase, you actually go up the stairs on your knees and say a prayer as you're going through every step. And it's a little painful, quite honest, because it's a long staircase. Uh, they say the holy stairs were believed to be where the praetorium of Pontius Pilate in Jerusalem was. So I'm going to throw up on the screen, Pilate sentencing Jesus. Now, according to the tradition, the steps were brought to Rome in 326 AD by St. Helena, who was the mother of the Emperor Constantine. And we're going to talk about her again when we talk about the finding of the Holy Cross. Kind of proud that I went to a high school called Holy Cross. Now, the stairs are located opposite the Archbasilica of St. John Lateran in the Piazza di St. Giovanni in Laterno. Uh, as I said before, they've been closed off for more than a year during the Vatican's restoration in the 16th century. And then you'll see uh, the 16th century frescoes surrounding the 28 steps. There it is. It was 28 steps. So when God restored uh, the entire church by what they say raising up Constantine the Great to his throne. Um, the story is that he triumphed over his enemies through seeing the miraculous cross in the sky, and then out of great sanctity, he basically instructed all the Roman citizens to become Catholic and made the official religion of the Roman Empire the Catholic Church, right? Prior to that, it was a pagan religion. Now back to Saint Helena or Helen, which was Constantine's mother. She had this great desire to visit holy places, and she made a journey into Palestine in 326. And though she was almost 80 years old, and I'll have a video following this that'll go in more detail. But on her arrival at Jerusalem, she was inspired with this desire to find the actual cross that Christ had suffered and died. And then she wanted to build a church on that site. But there was no mark of where it was, even among the very faithful Christians. So Saint Helen consulted everyone in Jerusalem and even the surrounding areas that she thought would be able to assist her. And she was informed that she could find the actual area uh, by just going through the old customs of what the Jews did at that time of Christ's crucifixion, which was to dig a pit near the place where the crucifixion took place, and they would just bury the cross there. However, typically what they did is they not only buried the cross there, they buried the criminal there. Well, we know that Nicodemus gave up his burial tomb for Christ, so of course Christ wasn't buried on the same site as his cross. Now, the Roman pagans were pretty much dominated the area, and they were adverse to any kind of Christianity. Uh, so they tried to conceal the place as best as they could because they knew very well that this would be treated like some sort of an icon of veneration. So when they were looking for it, they had to go through quite a bit of stone and rubbish uh, in order to get to it. So and they also did things like erect other pagan statues of gods like Jupiter in areas where Christ had risen from the dead. Same thing with the cross. They would try to cover that area with something of a pagan god. Now, St. Helen ordered that everything be pulled down and broken into pieces. In other words, to show, hey, if you were going to try to disgrace the site of Christ, we're now in control. We're going to disgrace your pagan temples. And then they just started digging. So what they did is they found the three crosses, and the nails were actually there as well. Um, and there was the title that was fixed to his cross that we all know, the actual plaque above his cross, the King of the Jews. So they knew that this had to be the site, plus there were three crosses together. So what they did is they took the crosses. There's a bishop of Jerusalem called Macarius, and he knew of a very ill woman, and so they took the three crosses to that woman, and the first two crosses didn't cure him. The third cross did cure her, and so they determined this was the true cross of Christ. So Saint Helen was so joyful that what she ended up doing is built a church on the site and placed a cross there, and required great veneration, right? And then she had returned to Constantinople, right, where her son Constantine was. And then she basically, they took part of a great feast of the veneration of the cross in Rome, right? And then there was built a church called the Church of the Holy Cross of Jerusalem, and it's still there to this day. Now, St. Helen placed on top of an arch where it was found uh, in a case of what they call lead in 1492. They didn't know that she had actually placed the inscription in Hebrew and Greek and Latin in red letters, uh, and also whitened the wood to demonstrate this was the true placard. And so that wasn't found until 1492, as I told you. So um, what's remarkable, those colors still haven't faded to this day, right? And the words on it is Jesus and the Judaromium, and I'll put that on the screen, are eaten away, right? Um, but the board is about 9 inches long, but it's considered to have measured about 12 inches originally. Um, So overall, they kept kept this tradition, and we owe quite a bit to St. Helen for her persistence in finding the cross. And we should probably not take for granted anytime we pass our cross, like the one above my shoulder, we should always make the sign of the cross and kiss the feet of Jesus, which is a great sign of adoration and respect. So I'm going to have a video follow this and give you a little bit more detail. But happy finding of the Holy Cross feast day today, and thank you very much.
In the 4th century, there was a Roman emperor by the name of Constantine. Constantine was very great because he is the one who made Christianity legal and lawful to practice in Italy. Now, he wanted to build a church in Jerusalem in honor of our Lord. So he went to Jerusalem. Also, his mother, Helena, went with him. Helena was very pious and very holy. She's actually a saint now, St Helena. So she went with him, and she was about 80 years old at this time. She had a very, very noble desire. She wanted to find the cross of our Lord. So she went to Jerusalem, and she was looking around where to find the cross of our Lord. Now, at this time in Jerusalem, no one knew where the cross was, because over the past 200 years, pagans, they didn't want the worship of Christianity happening in Jerusalem. So what they did was that they covered the sites of our Lord's crucifixion or burial and the place of his resurrection. They covered these up. They covered up with sand, and they even built pagan monuments over them. So they built a statue of the goddess Venus. They built a statue of the Roman god, the Greek god Jupiter. And that's very bad, because these are not real gods. These are false gods. They even built some sort of temples and shrines. So no one at this point in the year 300 knew where our Lord's cross was. So she went around asking, St. Helena went around asking people, trying to find clues, being a very great treasure hunter. Finally, she gathered that if she could find the sepulcher of our Lord, the place where he was buried, then she could also find his cross. Why is that? Because the custom of the Jews back in a few hundred years earlier before that was to bury not only the person who was executed, but also the instruments of their execution. So if someone, our Lord was executed by the cross, he died on the cross, they would bury the cross and the nails with the people as well, because they considered that these instruments, these instruments of torture or punishment, these weren't very fitting things to be seen. They wanted to get rid of them, so they buried them as well. So Saint Helena learned that if you could find the sepulchre of Christ, you could find the instruments of his passion as well. So she found the place where the sepulchre was, and like I said, it was already covered by all this pagan stuff. But because she was the mother of the emperor, she just basically said, okay, tear all this down. So they tore all of it down. They destroyed the statues, tore down the pagan buildings, and they started digging. Finally, they dug deep and they found the sepulchre of our Lord. And near the sepulchre was, to her surprise, 3 crosses, some nails, and the plaque that was on the cross, which said, Jesus of Nazareth, King of the Jews. This is a great treasure find, and the greatest treasure find in all of history, simply put, because other treasure hunters have found gold or silver, or they found ships or things like that, or documents, But St Helena found the true cross of our Lord, the cross that he used to redeem us. This is the greatest treasure hunt discovery in all of history, no doubt about it. But there was a problem. Remember, she found 3 crosses because our Lord was crucified next to 2 thieves. So she was thinking to herself, well, which one is the true cross? Because the plaque, it wasn't attached to any of the crosses. It was somewhere else. So she didn't know which one was the cross that our Lord died on. Fortunately, there was a holy bishop in Jerusalem at that time whose name was Macarius. So Macarius, he had an idea. He said, there's a sick lady in Jerusalem. What we should do is take the 3 crosses to her and then touch them to her. Whichever one heals her is the true cross. So they did that. They carried the crosses to the sick lady. The bishop was praying and they touched the crosses to her, and one of the crosses cured her. That's how they figured out which cross was the true cross of our Lord. A very great discovery. So St. Helena, in her piety, she built a magnificent church on the spot in Jerusalem, commemorating this find of the true cross of our Lord. And then she took a piece of the cross. Well, she left a piece of it there, and then she took a piece of it to Constantinople. That's where her son Constantine was. And then she also sent another piece to Rome. And even if you go to Rome today, you can go to the Church of the Holy Cross in Jerusalem, in Rome, and see a piece of the true cross of our Lord.